I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For special board meetings, the governing board welcomes public comments and provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the board concerning any item on this meeting's agenda. Any person wishing to provide a public comment to the board is required to attend the meeting. Public comments are allowed up to a maximum of 3 minutes per comment in the order received, to a maximum total time of 30 minutes per item for comments on agenda items. For consent agenda item topics, a limit of 3 minutes total will be allowed from one speaker. Unless the item has been placed on a published agenda in accordance with the Brown Act, there shall be no action taken. No discussion will be made regarding personnel issues in open session. All public comments are an important part of the board meeting and are given careful consideration by the governing board. Do we have any public comments today? Thank you, we do not. I'll move into our action items. I call for a motion and a second to make a provisional appointment for the Trustee Area 1 of the Temecula Valley Unified School District Board of Trustees.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Schwartz, seconded by Mr. Skowitz. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. The district invited candidates for provisional appointment to the vacant seat for Trustee Area 1. The board subcommittee screened the application for a minimum legal qualifications. All board members have had an opportunity to review the qualifying applications for the provisional appointment. Dr. McClay will now move forward.
Good afternoon. Very briefly, I wanted to walk you through the process for this evening. You will see that each board member has a folder that looks like this, and I just wanted to very briefly go through the materials in there so you know what to do with each of the items. It first contains on the right side the schedule for the evening, which includes each of the 7 candidates who were assigned their interview times from a random drawing. You also will see that after each one comes in, they'll come in individually. They'll be asked to give a 2-minute personal statement at the beginning, an opening statement, followed by responses to 6 questions. Mr. Mueller over there has graciously volunteered to be our timekeeper this evening. He will ensure that each candidate only receives 2 minutes for the opening statement. He will then let each candidate know when they have only 5 minutes left for the entire interview, as well as how many questions they have left at that point. And then finally, he will stop each interview at the exact 20-minute mark. Mr. Arce, our HRD Assistant Superintendent, is in what we're calling the holding room, and he will work with Mrs. O'Connell to bring each of the candidates in when it is their turn. You'll also note inside of your folders that you have what we call note-taking and scoring sheets. These are for the board if you choose to use them. Keep in mind that all of these items in your folders will be collected at the end of the process. It's the same way we do all interviews in HRD. After you've interviewed 4 candidates, we've built in a little bit of time for a brief break. It will be important that as a board you do not discuss anything you've heard up until that point, because again there will be 3 candidates who you have yet to see. They will come in after the break. So the break is simply get a little refreshment, use the restroom, and then come back in, but don't discuss anything. At the end of the final, or what we would call the 7th interview, the board can also take a short break if you'd like to collect your thoughts, review your notes, so that then you'll be able to discuss and hopefully make a provisional appointment. The final thing I'll say about the process is that it's critical that each person who comes in this evening or afternoon is asked the same exact questions in the same exact format. If a candidate should ask for a question to be repeated, that's fine, you may repeat it. If, however, they ask for any clarification, all you can do is repeat the question. And again, that's to be fair so that each candidate receives the same input throughout the entire process. So with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Hinkson and Mr. Schwartz. They were your subcommittee, and they're going to walk you through the questions that the subcommittee has selected. This is your opportunity in open session. It's the only legal opportunity you have if you'd like to make changes to the questions. And once we get the green light from you, Mr. Arce is prepared to give the first candidate the questions because he will have 15 minutes with those questions before he comes in.
So, Mr. Schwartz and Mrs. Hinkson, it's all yours.
Okay, can you hear me? So as a subcommittee, Mr. Schwartz and I got together and we determined 6 questions for the candidates. We'll be asking them in the same order, and the same person will ask the same question. We'll rotate through those. The board has been provided those questions to look at, but we have not had any discussion over those questions. And so you were asked to come today if you wanted to make any revisions to the questions that we have. So change questions, omit questions, or make additions to questions. We'll be discussing that right now and make any changes. And then each candidate is going to be getting the questions 15 minutes before they interview. So if we make any changes, we'll make those quickly and make sure that the first candidate gets those. So any comments to that?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, my only comment is if we could add, I'm not sure exactly where it would fit in, maybe 6, because 6 seems like an open-ended or right from the start, but I'd like some question to address, I guess the seat is for 12 months and then the intention of running again, or a question based on longevity, like something to the effect of, which is your highest priority? You can talk about that, and can you give some plan to your long-term plans with this seat, or I could use some help on how to kind of word it, but I want clarification based on the difference between wanting to do this as a placeholder or as a with intentions to run again in November and see out I guess that's another clarification question. So they run again in November and it's only for 2 years at that point, right? To finish out the 4-year term.
Yes, they would finish out the term.
So I don't know if that's been communicated to every candidate or if they have if we assume that they know that, but it would be, I think, important to clarify that this is a 12-month term re-election for a 2-year seat. And, get some sort of take on their long-term vision of if they were selected. That's it, right? Real simple.
So something like understanding that the position is a provisional assignment or provisional appointment for the remaining term. Actually, it's not even for the remaining term, it's until the next regularly scheduled election in November. Next November, so the seat is for 1 year. Following that election would be for the remaining term for trustee area 1.
Do you think
not
that's
for a
been
4-year term.
Do you think that's been communicated? Do you think that they, in the candidate information, truly understand the duration and then what the next election would? I've seen and gotten emails where I don't think they understand. I've gotten comments saying, seeing out the term, assuming that it would be then 3 years. So I don't know if that's in the beginning a clarifying point to say, just so we all understand what this is. Just like we've had conversations where people have thought we make a certain dollar amount per year as a salary or something. I don't know if that's important, but it would be nice to provide clarification perhaps in the beginning so that people who are interviewing for this truly understand what they're. I would hate to swear someone in, right, today, and then them assume that they're going to be here for 3 more years and make $50,000 a year, for example.
So I'm not sure that that's a question or an interview.
It's not.
It's more a information that should be provided or that candidates, I think, should have looked for themselves or found the information before
I just don't want to
stepping
assume it.
forward to apply for the position. So it sounds like your question, the actual question, is more related to, do you have an intention to run and continue in this position in the future? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, maybe it's first, do you understand the position, and second, do you plan on?
If I may, I have an idea. So in the beginning, when each candidate comes in, Mrs. Broach has a brief script where she will kind of describe the process. We can very easily work in when she says they have 3 interest in the board vacancy. She could say, just for clarification purposes, please know that this position is a provisional appointment through November of 2022. The selected candidate would then, if desired, need to put in to run a campaign and potentially be elected for another 2-year seat. Then you could, if you want, as a secondary suggestion, you could add a question 7 very briefly. I would add it though before number 6 and make it 6, since the current 6 is kind of the closing one. And you could say, understanding that the position is provisional appointment for 12 months, what would be your intentions thereafter?
Yeah.
Like that?
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Perfect. Let me go and get that question added so we can get to the candidate.
And who's gonna ask?
I'll work on it.
All right, and then you'll let us know when, the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So we may need to recess for a short break until
Yes, and then
until the first candidate has that 15
taking
minutes.
15 minutes. And if you would, if we're going to add that question in as number 6, I can leave Mrs. Hinkson as asking it since you're going in order. And then Mr. Skubowicz, you would take number, the current 6, which becomes 7, keeping in mind the board's not responding.
Will you be getting us a
Okay.
new?
You'll get a new one.
New one.
We're gonna go print them real fast.
Okay, and then the 15 minutes won't start until that candidate has the revised.
I will
copy.
come in and give you a thumbs up and you'll have 15 minutes.
The board will now take a recess. It'll be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have the option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 7 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you'd like on each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all of the questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there are 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin with your 2-minute opening statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you would bring as a member of the board.
Sure. Good afternoon, President Broche, members of the board. My name is Lee Darling. Mr. Schwartz, we've never met before. But a little bit about myself. I moved to Temecula Valley in 2002. My father was in the Marine Corps, spent much of my childhood, half of my childhood overseas. Before settling here, my parents bought a house. I was raised here, as many of you know, product of the district. Was a Vale Ranch Bulldog, was a Temecula Valley Bear for a year, and then I was a part of the first graduating class at Great Oak High School when it opened. A lot of the folks who are now administrators in this district were teachers of mine back when. I went on to UC Irvine, where I got my undergraduate and graduate degrees in the field of urban and regional planning. Upon graduation, and even during my time there at UC Irvine, I was heavily involved in the public sector. All of my professional experience, with the exception of a short 18-month period where I kind of fell away from public service, has been in the public sector, most of which at a school district. In 2013, I was hired at Hemi Unified School District as a transportation planner. I spent 5 years there, became an administrator, took an 18-month break when my son was being born, and I'm now back at Hemi Unified as the Assistant Director of Transportation. So all of my professional experience, as I said, has been centered around public service and in particular school districts. Obviously, as most of you know, I was on the school board here for 4 years and was succeeded by Mr. Lohner
2-minute opening statement.
Now we'll move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? What's your highest priority and why?
Temecula Valley Unified School District is the reason why my parents moved here. It's a standard that's been set for many, many years, high quality education. For me, what I am most proud of in this district, not only as a product, but as a board member when I served, is not just the academic prowess, but the educational experience that we are able to offer our kids. It's not just high quality education that kids get here, it's an experience. It's high quality athletics, it's band, it's music, it's extracurriculars that I think are second to none. I think we often focus on academics, and obviously in a district like this, those standards are set very high and are maintained or are expected to maintain. I think that's an expectation that should always remain. But the overall experience that a student is able to gain here in this district, I believe is second to none. You're able to leave this district with confidence that you can be successful at a four-year institution or in a career field, if that is the path they choose, more so than many districts I've seen. And I think that's what, as a board member, I would focus on, is ensuring that students have that opportunity, that every student has that opportunity, whether they choose college or they choose a career path. That was always my goal when I sat on this board. I've not wavered in that stance. We do what's best for kids. We do what's best for teachers and staff. And the highest priority for me would be maintaining that experience, ensuring that all students have the ability to access a pathway which allows them to be successful in college or in a career.
What issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
I'll piggyback a little bit on question number 1. But I think what's great about public education is it gives every student, regardless of their starting point, an equal opportunity to succeed. We live in an area which most students probably have a decent starting point in life, but not all do. But what's great about public education is that regardless of where you start, you have access to the same tools, you have access to the same schools, teachers, staff, programs that allow you to maintain that success. I don't think a successful school district graduates just their top tier kids or the ones who have lived in the valley their whole life or don't have any struggles, right? A successful district maintains those same levels of expectations and has a graduating class that is diverse, that had different starting points and different challenges. I think that's what's great about public education. I came from a background where I moved around every 4 years and didn't have a stable group of friends until I landed here in Temecula. You have students who may come from single-family households or a demographic which doesn't necessarily match the majority, but all those students should have, and I believe they do have, the ability to access all the same resources that allow that success, that allow them to access that educational experience that I talked about that students are able to gain here. So in short, equity of access to that educational experience is something that I feel very strong about.
what do you see as the single most critical issue facing Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future? And how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
This seemed like the elephant in the room question, maybe. But I don't necessarily want to talk about those circumstances or the politics behind what every district's facing, but I think it'd be foolish not to acknowledge that COVID has played a pretty unique role in today's educational experience and system. Obviously, we haven't been immune to that here in Temecula Valley, and without talking about, like I said, the contentious part of it, I think what's important is also how that affects what nobody sees behind the scenes. The effects of mandates and certain things that we are dealing with at a school district, which affect absenteeism, our ability to hire, our ability to retain employees or recruit. These are things in the background that, in order to be successful as an organization, you need the wheels greased, right? You need the people there, people present. You need high quality candidates. And I think what doesn't get talked about a lot is how hard that has become for the public sector. Right? I still work in the public sector. Part of my job is hiring, recruiting, and retaining employees. And in this environment, it's become increasingly difficult to do that. And if we want to support our students with whether it be transportation or auxiliary services or instructional aides or IAs that are needed in the classrooms for special ed or for whatever it may be, behind the scenes, the challenge to maintain that infrastructure has become incredibly difficult. And I know that we're not immune to that. There's got to be unique ways to handle those challenges to ensure that we have high quality people in the classrooms and providing auxiliary services as well.
Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Yeah, I'll actually just go back to the last big decision that I was a part of at the school board. Before we left, we were grappling with whether or not we should go out for a waiver to open schools. At the time, COVID had shut everything down, and we were getting new information what it seemed like daily. I think we're still getting new information what it seems like daily. But it was a decision that wasn't made in haste. It was one that took a lot of discussion and it took a lot of input. We spent a lot of time mulling over the facts and taking considerations of the public. As you all know, it's very important to listen to our constituents and hear what folks have to say in this community. And at the time, I remember saying something along the lines of, it's getting harder for the school board to make local decisions because of all the things that were occurring with COVID. But I think what we did well was we listened to our community and we provided a decision that we felt was best for our situation, for our students and our community. I think it all weighed heavy on us as a school board. It was not an easy decision. I'm not naive to think that the decisions have gotten easier. In fact, I think if we look back on it, that probably was something simple compared to what you all have dealt with in the last 12 months since then. But certainly one that at the time felt like we were putting ourselves out there, right? That we weren't just doing what we were told was the right thing to do. We were doing what we felt was the right thing for the community. And those are incredibly difficult decisions to make in the public sphere, especially if one goes against what some would say would be the majority thought process. But I know that that's a sign to the time now as a school board member. These are the decisions that you have to grapple with on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. And I think one thing I have is that experience is going through those and being able to remain pragmatic, understanding that what we do or what school board members do is always in the best interest of students and what's doing best for kids. And I think if you're able to always see through that lens and separate your personal beliefs from that, you can always make the right decision. I think it's clear that it's hard sometimes to separate personal belief, because sometimes your own personal belief may not be what's best for the most or for all. And that's when decisions become incredibly difficult. But I think my ability to maintain focus on what's best for students and what's best for our teachers and staff has been shown and proven here when I sat on this board. I don't believe it would waver, but those decisions are tough, and I don't envy the position of the board in the last 12 months, and should I be a part of any of this process moving forward, I would always wear that lens of doing what's best for students.
Question number 5, describe your response if a parent approached you at the grocery store and asked you for your support on a particular issue.
Yeah, so school districts are obviously bound by Brown Act and all the procedures and protocols that go along with that. I think it's important to ensure the public has the ability to speak, to be cordial, but certainly if something is agendized, the forum for that discussion is in open session at a school board meeting, and that would always be the direction, to attend a school board meeting. Certainly if there's something more poignant or something that needs to be, a question that needs to be answered, there's board protocols. The school board president typically is the public information officer, if you will, when it comes to responses of those sorts. So just ensuring that policies and procedures are followed, engaging in a way that as somebody who would be the face of the district, ensuring that those folks feel welcomed and understand the proper avenues to have those discussions, and maintaining professionalism in those engagements. And obviously, certainly, if something is closed session, just inform them there's not the ability to speak about those sorts of things outside of closed session time. But I think the big part is understanding your board policies, understanding Brown Act, engaging in a way that remains professional, and giving the public the opportunity to engage with you as a member of the board, but ensuring that the procedures are followed.
Mr. Darling, you have 5 minutes remaining and 2 questions.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
I saw this question when I got this sheet, and I want to be as honest as possible, because I haven't put much thought into this, because when I heard of the resignation of the board member, my response to it initially was not that, oh, this is an opportunity to get back onto the board. My response was, I understand what the school district is now going through, and I understand the position that they have been put in and the school board has been put in. And I think I'm uniquely qualified in my experience to provide an ability for the school board to not lose any momentum, to be tied into the goals of this district. So my first thought was really to be of service, because I've always felt that this district has given so much to me, and it's only a small part of my ability to give back is to provide somewhat of a public service. So to answer that question, honestly, I do not know. I'm not sure of my intentions. I've not given it much thought. My sole thought was to be of any service as I can to a district that I care deeply about.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Just that I think, I learned a lot being a school board member here, and I'm not I said earlier, but I'm not naive to the difficult decisions that are being made. I think one of the things I learned most as a school board member was being accessible, being available. I think at the end of the day, transparency in times like these and communication to the public in general are at the utmost of importance, right? And I'll admit to shying away from some of that at the end of my term. I knew it was kind of coming to the end. You know, Mr. Loner had a big presence. I wasn't sure. My family dynamic was changing. I was not sure where I was in terms of my intent to rerun. But when times are tough and times get tough, it's not the answer to become recluse and to close yourself off. I think it's the time where communication and being open to conversation becomes more important. I think the community deserves that, and certainly those who may be detractors or may not see eye to eye with a position that you take or a position the board takes, it would be our obligation to ensure that they understand why. They understand why I think the way that I think, or I feel the way that I feel, and why our board would make a decision that they do. And from my experience, I think that was probably one of my biggest downfalls as a school board member. I recognize that, and should I be put back on this board, one of my higher priorities personally would be to ensure that I make myself accessible to those who would like to speak to me or see me.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all of the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position for Trustee Area 1. Good afternoon, and thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have the option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 6 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you'd like with each question. However, the interviewer will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all of the questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there is 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We'll begin with your 2 minutes opening statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you would bring as a member of the board.
Can you hear me? I have been in Temecula since 1992. I have both a private and a public education, so I'm well-rounded on both sides of that as well in the education system. I've been a previous school district employee and worked with many special education students as well as the general education students as well. I was an instructional aide and went to many of the trainings and got my health clerk certification. So I am very respectful and understanding to the inner workings of the district office and love it. I was classically trained in ballet, so I bring a respect and a hardworking ethic, as well as I have worked almost every possible position and job you could think as a single mother. So I have the tenacity and will be committed, full-hearted as a parent and also as a citizen of Temecula. I'm seeking the success of Temecula and the community and our children. So I will bring an unbiased approach I have been on both sides of the political spectrum, as well as the educational system. I have seen well-rounded, many different views and ways of learning. So I would like to say, a fresh outlook and a respectful approach to every agenda item while leaving my opinion out of it and for the success of Temecula.
Now we'll move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority and why?
I am proud of Temecula's excellence. It is a very high standard that Temecula carries and upholds. We have a respect throughout this valley that is unlike any of the other cities. We're known, even LA and San Diego County hold us in high regard. I would love to maintain that. I feel that there is mandates that are causing stress to our staff and our students, which does not allow them to operate in their highest, best function as citizens and as community members. So looking at that as probably the first of what I would like to bring to the table is that there is resolutions that we can work through to help ease the stress, either in transition or in a new policy or something of that manner.
Question 2, what issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
Curriculum is a massive, not issue, but it is a massive toll that is getting kind of taken out. It's getting diluted. It's getting, it's not at the quality that we were giving our students prior. So Temecula students have very high scores in testing. We have some of the best teachers in the community, and I would love to maintain that high level of excellence in curriculum and academic standard that we had previously. And then as well as just maintaining a healthy culture for our community is vital. Since our students, we want to raise future community leaders, we need them to be operating and be trained well for that.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future, and how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
So as previously said, I've been a director of operations as well as working in the educational field, being both a mother and very, very active in the community. There has to be a solution. We are all critical thinkers. We all want the best for these children in the school district. And I know for a fact that there is a resolution that parents, community, the district, employees, the board can all come to a conclusion on. All stakeholders involved can have success.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
We could take the mandates as the first step. there has to be a way to accommodate the freedoms we have. And there has to be a way to protect our staff that is phenomenal at teaching our students. There also has to be a way to allowing parents the ability of feeling like they're being heard, and the students the most positive academic educational experience possible. The mandates, so for, okay, taking into account all legal and scientific matters, we can approach this from a very logical perspective and almost following in the footsteps, while not reinventing the wheel, but following in the footsteps of other districts that are doing it right now in neighboring districts. They're coming to resolutions allowing both the federal and our community to have the freedoms and let's not say that word. The implements of what is taking place in the health concerns, as well as protecting education and students and community. So bridging that gap between the two in a logical way, I think is absolutely possible.
Question number 5. Describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked for your support on a particularly hot issue.
I think this was like the funniest one, because I think this is the most smartest question of them all. I would say, I love your passion and the board wants to hear your opinion, absolutely. I can reassure you that we are working towards that resolution to make sure that you are heard and the success of your students found.
All right, question 6. Understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
Well, I hope that you guys are stuck with me, so I would love to run again for this seat and create a positive working relationship with the district and the board and be seen as a valuable member, part of the board and part of the community.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I know how hard it is. I don't know actually, but I can understand by watching and by listening and by praying for you guys how hard of a role this is, especially not being able to respond and maybe not even having the ability to do much, and that feeling would be discouraging. But what I can offer to you guys is that I would come unbiased with experience of not only having all the work experience that I've had and being a mother and being a community member and being active in our community and seeking out wisdom from senators and from government officials, knowing that there is resolutions possible, and I think that alone, just that hope of bringing that and being a team player with you guys, not against you, not looking to draw a line in the sand, but to actually be a team and further that and take that into the future is a powerful one, and I can promise and reassure you of that in my character.
Thank you for your time and interest. You are welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all of the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position for Trustee Area 1. Just for record, our previous applicant was Caitlin Jones-Hauser. Our next applicant is Catherine Jennings. Good afternoon, and thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment into November 2022. The selected candidate would then have the option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 6 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you would like with each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all of the questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there is 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin with your 2-minute opening statement. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you will bring as a member of the board.
My name is Catherine Jennings. I'm loud enough.
You have to use them, so sorry, because we are live streaming. That way everyone who's watching can hear you too.
So I went to the school district. I've been in the school district for the last 28 years. I also worked in the school district in special ed classes twice now. Most rewarding job ever. And now my son goes to school here. He is graduating actually this year. I'm interested in the school board because there's things that I've seen just because I've been in the school district for so long that, there's things that need to be revamped. And I've seen, I've talked to parents and asked them, what would they like to see for their kids? Because that's what we're really here for, is the kids. We're the advocate for what they need, not what we need. So, and whatever the parents think that, and we think that they would need for their children. So, because I've had a lot of problems with the school districts, even when I went here, and my son, because there's a couple problems I've had. So it's just, I would like to see if I can actually make a difference. And, I would love to be able to do that. And be able to just give my opinion about what should be done or what we should hopefully be able to accomplish within the parameters of what we're allowed to do. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority and why?
All right, well, I'll start with the highest priority. That would be special education. My son is in special education. I've obviously worked in special education classes, and I also had a 504 plan when I was here. So when I've seen certain, we do have really good programs for it. I will definitely admit that. But some things definitely need to be addressed. My son ended up not going to school for a year because the district wouldn't listen to me. My son was being bullied. My son didn't want to go to school. So I had a year of, a lot of stuff going on. And they just know to listen to me. So I was like, we need to start listening to the parents a little bit more than that. We know what's wrong with our students. But we know what they're going through because we see it personally at home. So I'll be able to see it personally. I've seen it personally from the schools as well, on how things go. And again, we are more here for the students. And don't get me wrong, teachers are important, obviously. But it looks like we've gone more towards the teachers than we have the students. And I'm like, that's what we're supposed to be here for, right? Educating our future, so then they have a future. I want to see my son be able to go onto his next, the next part of his life, equipped with the right tools to be able to do it and become successful. And I've obviously been very invested in this whole entire district because it's actually a really good district. It's one of the best here. And I want it to still thrive. And I want everything to be able to go, I want to be able to move us back into an actual, forward motion. Right now, I feel like we're stuck in the Stone Age. Because nobody's listening. And everybody thinks that they're right. And nobody wants to actually like just sit down and compromise and see what they can do to make things better here. I am definitely, like, most of the stuff with special education, I am proud of. Because I've seen, like, the SEAL program my son was in, I didn't even know it existed, to tell you the truth, because nobody would tell me anything. So when I found out about it and we went to it in middle school, it was interesting. And the teachers are amazing, and the classroom sizes were great. It's not until he got to high school is where things became a problem. But his teachers loved me, so I was always very candid, and I don't hold anything back. So yeah, did I answer all questions?
Question 2, what issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
That's easy. Bullying. It's been a huge problem here. It's gone back and forth. And the thing is just, we're punishing the victim rather than the bully. The bully is not being punished. Like, I'm not saying they need to be like punish, you know, but they need to realize what they're doing is crime. Because anything happens to me when I was in school. I got bullied, and then I saw my son getting bullied, and yeah. And I don't know how many times I got at the elementary or middle school, talking to the vice principal and principal about what was going on. And of course, the vice principal tells me that they brought in both of them to talk at the same time. That's not how you do that. What kid is going to want to tell on the bully if they're right there in front of them? They don't want to. Yeah, that's not okay. You can't do that. Because no kid is going to be a tattletale, so to speak. So I was like, and like I said, it took a year for me to get him out of that school. And it was hard. And I don't want to see anyone else go through that, ever. Because it was one of the hardest times in my life. And it made me stronger, obviously, on the other side. But that was just horrible. And I don't want to see anybody fall through the cracks. Because I almost did. Luckily, I had a strong mom who got me through everything and also got me tested like I should have been tested for the 504. Because the first time I got tested, I actually got help on it. They passed me just because they didn't want to give me the services. So yeah, it's just, all of that, it's become rampant throughout the whole entire school district. I've seen everything. I mean, I'm reading all this stuff online where it's like, everybody's bullying everybody, or and they think it's okay. They think that they're just gonna get away with it. And it's, I just get suspended for 3 days. That's all. I'm like, oh, so you get a vacation. I was like, no, when I got bullied and I got suspended as well, literally my mom looked at the principal and said, well, you wanna go to Disneyland? Because she was mad that I was getting suspended as well, because I didn't do anything wrong. But the other one, she just wanted to show that we didn't actually go. She just wanted to show that this is not right. I just can't. It's so close to my heart just because I've been through it and seen my son go through it. And at that time, also my son was going through a whole lot more with his dad. So yeah, it's definitely been a trying time that whole entire year. So like I said, I just don't want to see anybody else have to go through that. Because it can be rectified, it can be changed. We can go to the district and tell them like this needs to be treated, we need to address it in any way we can.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future? And how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
Because I already went over bullying, special education. Social media. Because everybody's on social media. Don't get me wrong, everybody is. And actually, I'm not even on Facebook anymore because I had to delete it because I was getting bullied on Facebook. We need to educate these children on, how social media should be used. And what they're doing is they're going back and forth. These TikTok videos are insane, where they're making TikTok videos of them vandalizing schools, or they're doing videos of them, stealing stuff from the schools. So I'm like, and that won't stop. It's going to keep going because social media is just going to keep going. It's going to keep growing, and which isn't a bad thing, really isn't. But unfortunately, we're seeing all this stuff on, and I can't do anything right now. There's not much I can do as just me. So I can't believe all this stuff that's going on. We need to be able to talk to these kids and make sure that they know that this is not how you're supposed to use social media. Social media is for you to connect with other people and network, and you also can talk to friends and stuff like that, but they're using it for a weapon. Like anybody can talk behind a keyboard. They can talk all big and bad. But once you get face to face, they don't do that. Because then, oh, I didn't say that. Or, it got deleted off Snapchat or whatever. So, because I've seen that happen too. I have a lot of friends that have kids in this district as well. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I liked when I was, growing up and had social media or even a cell phone.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Okay, well, recent COVID was handled horribly. I get it, everybody was scared to get, COVID, stuff like that. I'm almost 65, she got it, she was sick for 10 days, that was it, 2 of them. And actually me and my son never got it. And me and my son lived with her. So, and also with the masks and stuff like that, and then everybody's told us that we have to, which, by the way, was never actually a mandate. It didn't go through the proper channels, just like the vaccine. But, so my son had to wear a mask. My son had asthma, but it was seasonal. That was bronchial asthma because of breathing all the CO2 back in. Because you're supposed to expel that into the air, and you've got the trees that make it all back into oxygen again. That right there is maddening for me. I was not a happy camper at all. Because my son wants to go to the Army next year. And if we can't, get it to where he can breathe right again, he's not going to be able to go back in. Or go in, and I'm going to be angry. I am going to be one of those angry moms that people don't want to deal with. And because it's not fair to the kids or to the staff. I've talked to some teachers as well, and they're like, we don't want to wear this. I'm like, I don't blame you. Nobody does. Like, I can't wear it because I have a medical condition, so I can't wear one. So, and for the longest time, they actually didn't care if you had a medical condition. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't go anywhere. So I got stuck at home. It was, great. But it was, and I understand that we have to abide by, federal laws and state laws and stuff like that. But as a board, you still get to make decisions for the students. And the teachers are on the other side. But we still have to make sure that we're teaching these students that, you don't need to be scared of everything. Because that's what we're teaching them right now. Is that, we need to be afraid of what's going on in the world. It's like, no, you need to go at that head up, just if you have an opinion, then share it. But you need to share it in the right way. You need to be able to share it when, it's in a positive way rather than going negative like most of them have. I'm not saying just the students, parents have too. So, it's been kind of crazy, right now, and that was one thing I couldn't believe a lot of stuff, but being that we could have said no, but we wouldn't have gotten the COVID's money. So, and instead of worrying about money, we should have been worrying about the kids.
Question number 5, describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked you for your support on a particularly hot issue.
Well, first of all, I would greet her and say hi, nice to meet you, whatever. And I would tell her she needs to come to the school board meeting and she needs to ask in front of everybody. It's not fair for me to listen to her and think, oh my gosh, she's right, so this is just how it's gonna be. We need to be able to have rebuttals. We need to be able to have, listen to other parents if they have the same issue, or what kind of issue they have with it. So it's not fair for one person to sit there and make that decision for themselves and not be able to waver on it. I'd rather hear everybody's opinion. I don't like to take one person's opinion as truth or anything like that, because my parents raised me as that I have a brain, I can use it, and I can make my own decisions at the end. So, and fortunately, a lot of these kids don't have that anymore. But I definitely would just be like, come to the school board meeting so then we can all talk about it.
Ms. Jennings, you have 5 minutes remaining and 2 questions left.
Okay, thank you.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
Well, after that, I would probably run. Most likely I would run. My son is going to be going to the Army, and I'm going to have really nothing to do. I would love to actually be able to still make, just not decisions, but meaningful contribution to this district in any way possible. So, yeah.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Well, like I said, I do have experience in the district, obviously, for 28 wonderful years. There's one other thing though. So there was a meeting at my uncle's house last Friday. There's another candidate there. And in front of my mom, she said, they already told me I had the job, that this was all just a formality. Which my mom called me immediately and told me, and she said in front of my uncle, she said in front of her, she said in front of a bunch of people that she already has the job. They already told her that she has the job. So that is not fair at all. I mean, if she was blind, then she definitely shouldn't be able to be a part of it anyway. But I mean, if she's telling the truth and the system's rigged, and I'm not okay with that. This is supposed to be unbiased. And if something like that is happening, then it's not unbiased anymore. I would hate to think that anybody would do that, because I believe in the system. And the system with somebody acting like that, it's just not working then. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this is what happened, and it was very irritating. And I would I don't even know who it is, and really I don't need to know. That's not my business. I just wanted to let you know what happened and what was going on. And that, yeah, she said it in front of a whole bunch of witnesses. Which, I don't know who it is though. I tried to ask my mom who the person is, but I'm pretty sure I could find somebody at that meeting that would know. But I was very worried about that, because I was like, why come? Why do this? I was like, oh wait, I'm gonna come here anyway. Because no matter, I don't care what she said, I could still make a better impression than she could and get the job. So I decided to come anyway. I was like, I'm gonna say my piece. I'm gonna get it. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all of the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position, Trustee Area 1. The This applicant is Allison Barclay. Good afternoon, and thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have an option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 7 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you would like with each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all of the questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there are 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin now with your 2-minute opening statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you would bring as a member of the board.
Excellent, thank you so much, Phyllis. There we go. Oh boy. Your own voice on a microphone. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Alison Barclay, and I am a resident here in Temecula for the last 9 years. I grew up in Escondido, so I'm familiar with the area. We moved back to the area 9 years ago for my career. I am the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, Boys and Girls Clubs of North County, which is located in Fallbrook. Through that position, I feel like I have quite a bit of experience that would help me here as a member of the school board. We work hand in hand with the district in Fallbrook. We're right across the street, and all of their school sites contain one of our Boys and Girls Club sites. So we work with them on a daily basis, before and after school, ensuring that kids have a safe place to go. We work closely with teachers and administration to make sure that the programs we provide are complementing the school day and the curriculum that's being taught. Throughout my career, I have worked 30 years for the Boys and Girls Club. It's been my passion, working with youth and for youth. And I was the vice president of an organization in Salt Lake City for 18 years and really enjoyed that position. In the community in Salt Lake, I was involved with PTA and various community organizations, as well as a member of the Salt Lake City Arts Council. We were able to select public art pieces that were displayed throughout the city. Since we've been here in Temecula, I've been involved in Fallbrook quite a bit because of my work. I'm a member of the Rotary Club and currently president of the Fallbrook Rotary Club, which is very rewarding. I've really enjoyed getting to know that community. And here in Temecula, we've been involved with Pop Warner. My daughter was a cheerleader there for 4 years. Yes.
I'm sorry, that concludes your 2-minute.
Okay, great.
Now we'll move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority and why?
Thank you. One of the reasons we chose to live in Temecula was because of the school system. I have 4 children. 2 graduated from high school here in Temecula. 1 is currently a student at Temecula Valley High School. And a high quality education was very important for me. My children attended a magnet gifted program in the Salt Lake district, and I really felt like continuing that high level of challenging curriculum was important for them. And this district has a good reputation for high quality education, and we have not been disappointed. All of my interactions with teachers and administration have been, for the most part, very positive. And I really appreciate that as a parent and as a community member. And I do think it's really important for a district and schools to set kids up for success. Through my career at the Boys and Girls Club, that's really our mission, is to send kids off into the world set up for success, whether that's college, trade school, career, whatever that might be. And I definitely think that is a really important role of schools in the district.
All right, question 2. What issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
I do feel it's very important for a district to consider the needs of all. I do know I do love research, and I've looked at a lot of statistics surrounding this district, and I know that the numbers of English language learners are low, but I do feel like that is a really important piece to a district, as well as students with disabilities, gifted programs. I think sometimes it's easiest to focus on the majority, but I think it's really important that we continue to focus on the needs of all the students, so all of those needs can be met, setting them up for success in the future.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing the Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future? How would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
Obviously, there are a lot of critical issues right now facing the district, but I think what I would say is the most important thing right now, I believe, would be to keep and recruit high-quality teachers, staff, and administrators to the district. As the economy is changing, I know running a nonprofit myself, it's difficult to attract and retain employees right now, and for the kids and the consistency, it's very important to have those high-quality teachers, staff, role models, mentors for our kids. They're depending on us. They've been through some really rough times, and they don't need any more change. And I feel like those teachers are the backbone of every single day, what the kids see, what they're experiencing at school. So I feel like that would be the most critical issue to address. And I do feel like my experience can help there. As I said, I run a nonprofit. We have approximately 70 employees that work closely with the school district. So, I think it's important to make sure we do what's necessary to recruit and retain quality staff.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on that issue.
Thank you. Well, obviously the elephant in the room is, the current pandemic that we're facing, and I think that a lot of tough decisions have still to be made and have been made. But I think that I feel like the district has done a good job communicating with parents, allowing for feedback, and while also following the guidelines and the laws. As I mentioned, running a nonprofit, we're under a lot of the same restrictions. There aren't a lot of options. And tough decisions do have to be made, but I do think that you have to do what is necessary and required first.
Question number 5, describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked for your support on a particularly hot issue.
Well, I do think it would be very important as a member of the board to listen. I've learned that as in my career as a leader and in the community as I volunteer. It's very important to listen. However, I'm not sure that would be the best venue to have a discussion. I would probably try to listen and then encourage them to contact me, or that I could get their contact information and discuss it at a later time in a better venue.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
Well, I'm a very busy person, but I do enjoy serving, and I do feel like this would be something I would want to do for the long term. My daughter is a sophomore, and she's my youngest, so I'm getting ready to have more time on my hands, especially when she gets her driver's license. So it would be my intention to continue to serve as long as as long as people would want me to serve.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Sure, I'll never give up a chance to share a few words. I just want to let you know that I'm very energized about this opportunity. As I said, I am a very busy person. However, I've been really excited at the prospect of getting more involved in Temecula. As I was starting to mention, we've been involved with Pop Warner. My daughter's on the cheer team at the high school. I'm the treasurer there. We've tried to be involved as much as possible, especially since she is our last one, but I'm really excited to help where I can. I do feel like that's important for me as a person, that if I feel like I have a skill that I can contribute somewhere, that's what I try to do. So that's really what has interested me in this position, and being a part of this group and helping where I can in the district moving forward.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all of the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position, trustee area 1. We will now take our break. It's a 15-minute break, so we will come back at 4:10. Thank you. We will now have applicant Stephanie Good. Good afternoon, and thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have an option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 6 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you would like with each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there are 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin with your opening 2-minute statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths that you would bring as a member of the board.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's try that. There we go. My name is Stephanie Good, and I'm very pleased to be interviewing for the school board district position. I would appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and to tell you why I would be an excellent candidate for the position. I have lived in Temecula for almost 18 years. I love the community, from beautiful old town and the wineries to the many neighborhoods and parks and schools that make up my home. My husband is a small business owner, and we've been married for 26 years, and in fact, we met in middle school. Together, we have 3 children, 2 who are in college and 1 who's finishing up high school. I have experience being in the trenches as a teacher. I know the joy as well as the sacrifice and the long hours the teachers put in. I also have experience as an administrator, so I have a unique perspective on what it takes to be in a school district position. My experience working as an assistant director of assessment has provided me with an understanding of the importance of evaluating our students' learning and providing teachers, parents, and schools with valuable information and data so that the next steps in instruction can take place. My current role within MTSS, which is Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, has allowed me to create connections with specialized school staff such as counselors, principals, psychologists, and of course our parents and students. It's a gratifying work to do because it's not a wait until they fail stance. It's proactive, it's just in time, it's targeted, and it addresses academic, behavioral, social, and emotional challenges that our students are indeed facing.
Ms. Good, that's 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay, thank you.
We'll now move on to our questions. Question number 1, what are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority in life?
There are so many wonderful things in our Temecula Valley Unified School District. We have a graduation rate of approximately 92%. We have 12 schools that have been designated as California Distinguished Schools. We have an excellent IB program from Great Oak High School, which my niece graduated from. We have amazing dual enrollment courses at TVHS and Chaparral. We are in the top 20% of performing public schools. Our DLAC meetings help empower parents. They give information about the LPAC test, how to reclassify, how to address teachers. We provide preschool parent workshops. There is awareness about growing issues such as fentanyl. I'm just so proud of all of these things that TVUSD is taking seriously. One of my highest priorities would be to continue the curriculum and instruction piece and seeing our students continue on either into college or into the career after they're done with their time in our schools.
Question 2, what issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
I feel that one of our most challenging issues is preparing our students for the world that lies beyond the classroom doors. Whether they're college bound, whether they're headed to a trade school, whether they are moving into our career, into the career world, all students are different. They all have different strengths. They all have different challenges. They have different perspectives. They have different upbringings and religious beliefs, but they are all capable of success. And so I really feel that it's important that we have the specialists and the resources in place to be able to prepare these students. So that would include those teachers. That would include those special ed aides. That would include athletic coaches and speech and language pathologists and counselors. And I didn't get a chance to mention it earlier, but my current role in intervention has allowed me to create relationships with all of those people. And so we really need to make sure that we are filling those staffing shortages in our schools today.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future? And how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
As I just mentioned, this is a national issue that our schools are short-staffed right now. I experienced it in my own school, and I just last night saw there's 168 open positions on EdJoin for TVUSD. Without those spots filled, our students are not being given as many opportunities and resources in people that they deserve. Even more than that, I think the mental health and the well-being of not just our students, but our school staff is really under fire right now. I think that's a huge issue. I just read a statistic by Harvard that said between November of 2020 and January of 2021, a group of 7 to 15-year-olds was surveyed, and 67% of them cited that they had clinical symptoms of anxiety and depression. So I think we really need to take the mental health and well-being of our students seriously. I think we need to be addressing that on a daily basis. We need to be addressing the learning loss that's happened through this pandemic. And then we need to really equip our educators to be able to help those students.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on that issue.
I was thinking about this question, and I'm thinking more in terms of all of the issues that we've gone through. as a community, as school boards, with the mask mandates, with the closing and the reopening and the distance learning. And I have attended some of these meetings and been unable to even get inside because of the interest and the enthusiasm from the community. And these are heated issues. And so while these issues were not necessarily something that was just Temecula based or Temecula centered, these are hot issues. So balancing the community concerns and the student needs and state and federal laws and my own personal beliefs, that's a tricky one. First and foremost, we have to follow the law. And we need to definitely always have student needs as our overarching goal. So our decision should not be based on trying to make waves or trying to make the news, but really always thinking about what is best for our students.
Question number 5, describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked you for your support on a particularly hot issue.
As a board member, it's important to remember that we do not represent our own individual interests, but we should operate as a team. And it's perfectly acceptable to listen to community members' concerns and to bring those back to the board to discuss. But it would not be appropriate to promise or overstep my role as just a member of the board. So I would gently remind the person in the grocery store about that. And of course have a listening ear, but just remind them that I'm not empowered to make a decision solely on my own.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
My intention would be to run in the election. I would want to continue my experience after having a year of serving on the board. I know that my insight would be so much greater and I would have such a more valuable perspective, and I would hope that the community would appreciate that, would value that, would be open to listening to what I've learned throughout the year, seeing how I have operated as a board member, and I would definitely be excited to be involved in the election process.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I think that there are always people that are interested in serving on the school board or in another capacity for the wrong purposes. And my purpose and my why would be for the students, absolutely. I love education. I love everything that it entails. I have always loved being a student, and I would definitely identify as a lifelong learner. And I became a teacher originally, not to become wealthy, but to be able to make a difference and to empower students and to be there when those sparks fly, when a student first understands a concept. Learning has transformed my perspective, and it's broadened my understanding, and it's enriched my life. And while I know that every student is unique and faces different challenges and has a different support system, I do believe that every student can learn, and I think that as a board member, being committed to the success of all of our TVUSD, regardless of their path, whether it's to college or trade school or a career, they need to know that there is somebody there that's supporting them. I believe that my communication skills, my diplomacy, and my ability to see both sides of an issue would be an important contribution to the board. I would take my role seriously, and I would choose to be involved with integrity and with transparency and work with a strong work ethic that I bring to everything that I do. So I appreciate your time, and I would appreciate your vote today. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all of the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position for trustee area 1. We now have candidate Skylar Temple. Good afternoon. Thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have an option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 6 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you would like with each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all of the questions have not been answered. The board is interested in your responses to all the questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there are 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin with your 2-minute opening statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you would bring as a member to the board.
Well, first of all, thank you so much and good afternoon everyone in attendance. It's great to see so many familiar faces up there. I'd first like to thank Dr. Barclay as well and her staff for making this such a seamless and easy process for the appointment. So for those who don't know me, my name is Skylar Temple. I was born and raised here in Temecula, and I am a graduate of our K-12 public schools. By virtue that I am a product of this district, and I'd like to continue to foster exceptional students that are ready for the workforce, college, and whatever paths they may be following. After graduating from Temecula Valley High School, I went to college and I began my advocacy for our community. I had the privilege to work on campaigns and earn mentorship from those working in federal, state, and local office. And it's there that I learned the limits of each office and how they were able to affect change for their community. So we all know these are very difficult times for our community. I believe that now more than ever, as a board member, it's critical to have productive conversations with those that we serve. Temecula has and always will hold a special place in my heart. It's imperative that this board appoint an individual willing to not only put in the work, do the research, but they're ready to lead on day one and work collaboratively with all stakeholders in order to make TVUSD a fantastic district, not only for this community, but the state and nation as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority in life?
First of all, I'm proud of our teachers and our students because through this pandemic, they have shown a resiliency through the toughest of odds that we haven't seen in over a century. And without the teachers that work in this district, I wouldn't be half the man that I am today. I had some fantastic educators that really taught me the value of civic engagement, that taught me the value of learning. And that's why I've always considered myself to be a lifelong learner, and why today you see this massive binder in front of you. I never go anywhere unprepared because of my educators that taught me the value of knowledge. Secondly, I would like to accomplish a couple things, but chiefly among them is encouraging more community engagement. Now, public comment I consider to be a one-way communication and very ineffective at actually getting anything done. So I like to make sure that going forward we're doing more actual outreach, proactive work to talk to every stakeholder in our community, parents, students, educators, etc. And really making sure that we visit every school site, making sure that their needs are heard and that we're doing everything possible to continue to make TVUSD a great place to learn. And lastly, my highest priority is going to be, namely our students, right? Doing everything possible to make sure that our students have an effective learning environment, right? Because we're only here because of our students. And if we're not doing everything in our power to make sure that all students feel capable of learning in the classroom, we're failing. So I like to make sure that we're always keeping the students at the front of mind, and that we're working our hardest to fulfill that mission.
Question 2, what issue or issues related to the district and or public education do you feel strongest about?
Yeah, so career technical education is an area that I actually participated in the CTE Video Media Arts program at Temecula High School. While it was not my eventual career path that I took, the career readiness that I experienced and the college readiness that I also went through in my time all throughout K-12 education really gave me options. And I think that's what's really important for a lot of students. You know, many that go right out into the workforce or college don't necessarily know what they want to do right away. But that's okay, as long as we prepared our students to be exceptional producers in the world. They're going to be prepared for whatever they would like to do, whether it be a non-college degree needing work or college and whatever work comes after that. So career technical education is very near and dear to my heart. The program was just getting started when I was in high school, and being a part of that program from start to near fulfillment was really exciting. I'd like to continue to see that grow here in TVUSD.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing the Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future, and how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
Yeah, so I'll address the elephant in the room, right? There is a lot of frustration in our community right now, right? And I think I've talked about it briefly already, that one-way dialogue that we kind of experience, both as board members and members of the community. And I think we can do more to have two-way dialogue, right? Whether it be roundtable discussions, whether it be town halls, coffees, whatever we need to do, it's that outward communication that we are actually trying to say, hey, let's have a dialogue. Because I think through dialogue, we're able to do more than one-way communication. And so through that end, I'd like for board members, and I would plan to do this myself, to have more of a presence on social media. Right? Social media is a prevalent tool these days for communication, and it's a great way to make sure that people can feel connected to board members, right? I don't want folks' first interaction with the board to be when they're angry or upset about something, right? I like for it to be a positive experience, because once we develop that positive experience, then when there is something that we really do need to address for them, we have that baseline understanding of each other. It's coming from a good place, and we can work to foster a better solution for them.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
Yeah, so I mean, in-person versus online learning, right? We started out in the pandemic fully online. The conversation that moved between, hybrid, in-person, online, what is the plan? And I can speak for myself and also for so many other parents. I'm glad that we're back in the classroom, right? We're on that pathway back to a sense of normalcy for the first time in 20 months, right? And, there was a lot of considerations that needed to be, taken accounted for, right? The federal and state laws and regulations around that. What was best for our community? How do we take in all that information and turn it into a decision, right? Because at the end of the day, as a board member, you're one of 5 votes, but your one vote is way more than just you. It's your community, it's the staff, it's everyone. So you obviously cannot rely on just one of those sources of information coming in to fulfill your decision making, right? How you feel personally should matter, how the community feels should matter. And balancing that out can be difficult, I can understand that, right? But that is the duty of an elected official. An elected official bears that responsibility of ultimately making that final choice, weighing out all the options with the right research and tools in front of them to make an informed decision. So As long as I feel that I have been given proper information and enough tools to understand what's in front of me, then I believe that I can effectively balance all those different sources of information.
Describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked you for your support on a particularly hot issue.
And that kind of gets back to what I was just talking about, right? You know, research. I am not someone that likes to shoot from the hip, right? I like to think things through, especially something that could be considered a hot issue, right? Again, it's thinking about every stakeholder involved, right? If I shoot from the hip and say, I'm in favor of that, well, what if that is against the interests of 95% of the stakeholders, right? And I just go off of my gut feeling. Well, that's not fair to the 95% of people that are against that idea, right? So I will always do what's in the best interest of this community by doing my due diligence, right? And I do think that it's really important that we set expectations, right? If someone was to approach me and say, hey, what's your opinion on this? I'll be completely candid with them and tell them, I haven't given it much thought yet, but I will give me a little bit of time. Let me think it over, do my research, and let me get back to you. What's your contact info? I'd be happy to communicate with you about this. Because shooting from the hip leads to negative consequences, right? What if I say something there, I say yes, but after I do my research, I'm like, ooh, maybe not. Then I've essentially lied to someone, and I can't live with that. That would be unfair to them and unfair to our community. So that's how I would respond, is simply put, let me do some research on this and get back to you.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
I would run in 2022, and you know the voters willing in 2024 as well, because there's not a whole lot you can do in 1 year. I'd like to do a lot, but I believe it's important that this is a position that isn't meant for a placeholder, right? That this is someone that's willing to put in the time, the work, the dedication, and the research to really continue to make this district a better place. So I believe that this is a long-term commitment, not a short-term one.
Keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, you know, I'm ready from day one to represent all stakeholders in this community. You know, Robert's Rules of Order and the Brown Act are very familiar to me due to my involvement both with state and local elected officials. You know, I've already, looking right back through here, is the governance handbook, right? Cover to cover already because I do my research. Before I even considered applying to this, I did my research. And so I've always prided myself as that person that will do what's necessary to fully understand what's in front of me and then turn what's in front of me into digestible policy, right? Because we would get a lot of information as a board, right? But how do I turn what's in front of us into something that maybe the single mom at home doesn't have time to listen for an hour about the budget? What is the state of the budget? Is it good? Is it bad? Indifferent? How do we turn that into something that the normal person who doesn't have time to come to a board meeting for 3 hours, how do they get that information to understand it and know that their board is doing good work? So for me, that's what's really important. And you know, conversations with the community already, as I've talked about this two-way dialogue, right? I've already been asked, if you get appointed, please meet with me. Please. Because we really got to do better to step up and listen to our community more than the one way, right? Because I've always been a big believer of the conversation, right? Whether something comes out of it or not, we've done something, and it's better than nothing. And lastly, I'll leave you with this, that you know, new perspectives should always be welcome on the board. My perspective may not be new to our community, but it could be new to those on the board. And so I ask you to keep all that in consideration when you make your vote later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience for the remainder of the interviews. When all the interviews are complete, the board will discuss and vote to select the provisional appointment to the governing board position for Trustee Area 1.
Thank you.
Now we have candidate Edward Guevara. Pronounce that correctly? Guevara. Good afternoon and thank you for your interest in the board vacancy. For clarification, this position would be a provisional appointment until November 2022. The selected candidate would then have an option to run in the election if desired. We have allowed 20 minutes for each applicant today. We will allow up to 2 minutes for you to give an opening statement. Following your opening statement, we have 6 questions we would like to ask of you. You may take as much or as little time as you would like with each question. However, the interview will stop after 20 minutes, even if all questions have not been addressed. The board is interested in your responses to all questions, so please keep the time limit in mind as you respond. We will notify you when there is 5 minutes remaining and let you know how many questions remain. We will begin with your 2-minute opening statement. Please tell us a little about yourself. Be sure to include experiences relevant to this position and the strengths you would bring as a member of the board.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edward Guevara. I am originally from San Bernardino, California. I was born and raised. I then joined the Marine Corps, and that was September 2001. And as I'm finishing 20 years, I am looking to plant roots in the community that I'm choosing to reside in. My kids go to the schools here, and so I'm looking for a way to help. I have 3 strengths that I would say I have: patience, curiosity, and my experience. I guess I'll also start with kind of my background. Growing up, I have it in my application there, but I didn't get past really the 7th grade. I kind of got moved along from elementary school to middle school to high school, and even then it was, you need to take an equivalency because this isn't working out. And so that experience has taught me how important education is, and from all levels, because like I said, I started as an elementary student. So as an elementary student, I care about them, I care about what they're going through, and I want to make sure kids don't fall through the cracks. I think that as it moves on, it just gets harder, obviously. You go to middle school, you go into high school, and things get more challenging. You deal with more people and different life challenges. And having seen that and seen programs that maybe could have helped me but maybe didn't, those things all kind of echo in my mind and make me think that this is something I would give a lot of effort to. One thing that I've learned is that transient kids also need a lot of help. In particular, I did move around a couple places, but I've also seen that moving across the country multiple times, moving across the world multiple times. And I know that those kids need extra help as well. I've seen that and I've experienced that.
Mr. Guevara, that's 2 minutes for your.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our questions. Question number 1. What are you proud of in this district? What would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which is your highest priority and why?
I think that the thing I'm most proud of in this district is the teachers. I think that when everything happened with COVID, they did really well. I think there's a lot of challenges with it, and I think that what I saw from the teachers that taught my kids and the school that my kids go to, they adjusted. And, to me, I've done distance learning and that kind of thing, but I know that's not their general thing. That's not what they were used to. So I think they did a really good job of adjusting to that. I've been to the virtual open houses. I've been able to meet the teachers. I've been to where I've watched my kids learn. I think that the teachers that I know that live in the area, they all do their very best. And I think that's probably our biggest strength and the thing I'm most proud of. I think that my highest priority would be ensuring the communication efforts are done well. Just make sure we're doing everything we can to reach everybody that we need to. And that has to go back to the transient piece. There's a lot of kids who just don't know what's going on and things.
Question 2, what issue or issues related to the district and/or public education do you feel strongest about?
I'll kind of refer back to everything else I said about transient students. I think that's absolutely my number one focus. I think that's an issue in education. They come through and they don't always get what they need to get started, or they get pulled out and they don't get kind of that warm handoff that they could get.
What do you see as the single most critical issue facing the Temecula Valley Unified School District in the immediate future, and how would your background and experience help the district to meet this challenge?
I think that the growing industry that's happening around here adds to, again, transient students, but it adds to those issues that we may see. I think that the communication piece and making sure that those people are aware of what's going on was one of the things we can help with that. And that's where my background really comes in. The thing that I've been doing the last 20 years is working with the public to tell them what people are, Marines specifically, are doing in foreign nations and in dangerous situations. And people want to know that. And so I know how important that is to ensure people are informed of what's going on.
Question 4. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal value and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
I believe the effort that is going into improving communication and the family university and involving families, those putting efforts toward that, I think is an important decision, because that's how we keep people aware of drug issues, things that could kill people. I think that my background with that is working with Youth International, working with different youth programs that support educating our youth and their families about the negative effects of many life choices. And I think that that's an important thing to do. And so I think those types of efforts are really important to support.
Question number 5. Describe your response if a parent approached you in the grocery store and asked for your support on a particularly hot issue.
I think the most important thing in that situation would be to acknowledge their feelings, acknowledge what they're trying to tell me, and ensuring they know how to provide any supporting information to the district, so that if there's something we can do about it, we can do it.
Question 6, understanding that the position is a provisional appointment until November 2022, what would be your intentions thereafter?
I fully intend to focus on the now. I don't know what will happen at that time. If that's something for me to address at that time, I will. But until then, I'm going to focus on the now.
Question 7, keeping in mind that the board cannot respond to you, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I think it's important to let you know that I intend to make myself fully accessible as much as possible, whatever's appropriate to take care of what needs to happen in supporting the district and all of our families and students and teachers and just everybody. There's a lot that needs to happen, so I can't imagine that takes a small amount of time.
Thank you for your time and interest. You're welcome to join the audience. The board will now take a few minutes to review our notes and prepare for the discussion. We ask that the audience remain quiet. was just gonna ask that. Is it possible for us to get the other mic? Is that fine? We won't interfere. Is it? Okay. So we'll start this discussion. We're gonna discuss the positive attributes that our candidates have for us tonight. Does anyone want to start first?
Okay, I'll start. I would just say I would want to start with a couple things. One, I want to maybe on behalf of the board say thank you for everyone that put their name out. This is a very strange way to do this, and I know it's not easy, and it takes a lot of courage to sit up here and go through all these questions. So first, I would like to say thank you. And the stories you told of your personal experiences, I think kind of is refreshing, right, for how the last few years have been. It's great to hear a lot of positive stories, a lot of good experiences in the district with teachers. The other thing I would say is there's no question that the teachers, if they were listening to this, should feel a lot of love. There were a lot of comments about how important and valuable our teachers are. So I hope that that was heard and should be heard and can be relayed, but that's a really important thing and it's good to hear. I just think for me, I just wanted to start with being grateful, because when this first happened, my thought was, who would in their right mind choose to do this? And that's just being honest, and it's because it's a difficult time and it's not an easy job. So thank you for putting your name forward, regardless of what happens. I just want you to know it's appreciated and you're valued from all your stories and all your kind of putting your heart out there. It's it took a lot of courage, and I just wanted to say thank you.
I hate to be repetitive, but again, what Adam said, putting yourself in this position in front of people you don't know and the whole community is a real act of courage and bravery, and we value everyone who has come forward and put themselves in that position. As someone who in my career had been interviewed for various positions, I know what it feels like to be an individual, but to be part of a group that's evaluated at the same time takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-assurance, and I congratulate all of you, whether you're selected or not. You are fine members of our community.
So I'm going to just add a little piece to that before we start the discussion. First of all, that this is a really uncomfortable process, I know, for everybody. How often do you go to an interview and have the people who are interviewing you talk about the interview in front of you, right? And so that's part of the Brown Act and the Open Meeting Act, where everything we do is in the public's eye. So we have those discussions for all to hear. So I realize that's really uncomfortable. And again, I want to thank everybody, and knowing too that, this is until 2022, and at that time, anybody who wouldn't be selected obviously has an opportunity to put their name in the hat and jump into the election and let the community make that decision. That said, we should begin our discussion about the candidates. So does somebody want to start on that? Mrs. Broche, would you? Okay, so I'll just get the ball rolling. That doesn't mean that's where we're headed, but at least it'll open the conversation. So for me, I think that one of the important things to realize is that having some idea of the important issues and of education, and that doesn't mean firsthand being involved in education. Not everybody has that. Is important because of the fact that this is a limited time. It's a from now until next November when there's an election. So it is essentially 1 year. I think everyone on the board can attest to the fact that there's a steep learning curve when you come on the board. to know how things work, to understand the protocols, the procedures, what the legalities, really, all of those things, and how a board works together. So there's a real steep learning curve in a short time to get there. That's a huge challenge, and then to come on in these times makes it even more challenging. For me, I think I had 4 individuals that stood out, and I'll maybe share some of those reasons. The first, these are in no particular order, I just happen to have them spread out in front of me at the moment. Skylar stood out as being extraordinarily well prepared and willing to go the extra mile to learn about all the things that are necessary to learn about. Also, being a past student, you bring that experience and understanding of what's important educationally as well. So I think that that's important. For Stephanie, I think that your statistical knowledge, where are you, Stephanie, shines from the position that you hold with Springs Charter. I think that it was obvious from the information that you came with that you'd done your homework and you had a lot of information about the district. Important information, details that we have learned in our time on the board. And I think the one question I would have liked to have heard, and I know you can't respond now, that time has passed. The one question I would have, that I was curious to hear as you interviewed was your reasoning for wanting to be engaged in public education versus Spring Charter, which is a county charter, and your own children attending private schools and charter schools and homeschools. So I was curious about that. But then again, that also can reflect on where we're at currently and the many choices that our students are facing in this post-pandemic education world too. So that was one thing I was kind of tuning in for. Mr. Darling certainly would come on board pretty much up to speed. Knowledgeable over 4 years of many of the programs, not just current issues, but a history of being knowledgeable in all the programs in the district, as well as protocols and procedures and how a board functions. So I think that there's an advantage there as well. And then the fourth one that I have is standing out for me was Allison Barclay. Your experience with the Boys and Girls Club. Where are you, Allison? There you are. Really shows your passion for our youth and your experiences with the schools. Not necessarily being an educator, but having knowledge of what goes into education and the things that are important to our students. And that is not in any way meant to diminish anybody else who was here, because all of your responses were very enlightening for me. These were just the 4 individuals that stood out to me. So I'm going to pass the mic and let somebody else share how they felt about the interviews.
Thank you, and just to echo what my board member said, I know these were hard questions with many different levels of answers. It definitely helped me determine, I'm going to discuss my top 3. All 3 of these candidates, number 1, were sure that this wasn't a short-term position for them, that was a long-term goal. Starting off with, and again, in no particular order, with Stephanie, I felt like you had good depth knowledge of how our education system works. You have vast experience. The fact that you knew what our graduation rates were, what our programs were in the schools was great. You also recognized that some of our biggest issues are staff shortages. I think sometimes we get really sidetracked that COVID is our biggest issue, but it's not. There's so many different layers to a school district that's just part of it at this point. Mental health. Also that you recognize that with all the challenges, following the law is imperative for us at this time. Skylar, You were my next one. I think you have a deep knowledge of how the Brown Act works, which is probably the hardest part of learning on a board. The fact that you want to be visible on the school sites and you want to be a part of the community is extremely important. The community engagement and building on what our staff has already done with our family university is imperative. You had good knowledge base of our CTE programs, which is a growing part of who we are and what's shaping our students, especially the ones that choose a different path other than college. So I appreciated that. You left me with something you said that you want to make sure everyone's having positive experiences, and I think that that's incredibly important. Also, that personal beliefs, they don't matter at the end of the day. We're here for every student, not just one student or one view. My third was Allison. I think you have good knowledge of the educational system because you work with the Boys and Girls Club and you are on school sites pretty frequently, if not probably every day, and understand the protocols that are in place. I appreciated that. Your answer to question 1, high quality education and retention of our teachers, extremely important. I think that's a goal that has been our district since I started on this board, probably long before. And the fact that you recognize that, I appreciate it. Our work with our ELA numbers and our students, important. And our critical issues back to continue to retain our teachers and our staff, especially during shortages, is important. I think number 5 you answered, I wrote down listen and encourage. I think those were great attributes. So those are my comments.
I'm going to just echo on that, the college and career ready and the CTE. I heard that in a lot of questions, which to me that was my passion coming onto the board, was to make a difference in our college, our CTE. And so that's nice to hear that everyone has that in mind, college and career ready. So
Amazing how I also have 3 candidates that I was particularly impressed with. Start with Skylar. I thought your opening statement and your qualities of patience, curiosity, and experience were very important to being a good board member. I like the fact that you recognize that teachers are critical, and having good teachers are part of why you were so successful. Your decision that communication with the community and all the stakeholders is also very important. And the fact that you believe that being accessible and supporting the staff and family and students is critical also. Stephanie, I was very impressed with your knowledge of schools and how schools work and education in general. Particularly like that you focused on preparing students for after they graduate, and that you recognize the national issues of short staff, mental health, and learning loss. These are things that we've discussed on the board in depth many times. And your answer to question 5, which is something I learned when I came on board, is that the board is a team. And it's not appropriate to make any individual decisions with people until you've discussed it with the board and come to a decision as a board, and then stand behind what the board has decided is critical in running an effective board. And finally, Allison, I was impressed with your knowledge about the schools, the fact that you work for a community organization and have contact with school system is really important. That you believe positive interactions with teachers and administrators is a key to setting up success for students. Your issues and my issues were the same ones I ran on in this election, English language learners, gifted students, and special ed. So we see eye to eye on that. Finally, that you recognize the tough decisions about COVID, that it's not something that we go on our feelings, but there are mandates and laws, procedures that we have to follow, despite what we might believe personally. And finally, your question about the grocery store, you said you'd listen, but it's not the best venue to discuss an issue, and I agree with you. So those are my top three.
Okay, rather than I'll just kind of cut to the chase. My top three were Mr. Darling, Mrs. Barclay, and Mr. Temple. I think for me, some of the main issues, apart from you guys did a good job summarizing answers and understanding the district and so on. I think for me, onboarding is important. I guess one of the questions I have with CSBA coming up in a few weeks, does this person get to participate in that? So that kind of helps with what that is a conference where you learn a lot about being a school board member, about the rules, about the laws, things you can do, ideas you can come back with to bring to the district. Experience is big for me. I think the reason why I selected Mr. Darling, from my perspective, he's the one person that I do know, having sat in meetings with, critical thinking skills, it meant a lot that he took ownership of things that he learned with the experience of being on the board for 4 years and things that he wants to improve upon and change if he got the opportunity. I think there's no question for me with Allison is the experience and having kids in the district and participating on that level. My biggest concern is time management and multitasking, which obviously you prove you can knock out of the park with all the things you're involved. And Skylar, you're sharp. You have everything kind of put together. Your answers are smart. You pay attention. So I think the question for us to, and I don't really know what the next step is, right? So I'll just kind of throw this out. I think the question is, what are we most comfortable with? How quick can we get someone up to speed so that they feel comfortable? What have we learned, right? Just full disclosure, this board, and I apologize, having been through this now, sitting here, I had to resign after my first year because my wife changed jobs, and that's, there's a lot of rules that you need to understand. That's why in the very beginning we said, look, this is only for 12 months, then you got to run again, and that seat that you would run for would only sit for 2 years. It's not a 4-year term. There's a lot of information that you have to understand that if you don't understand it well, you get yourself into trouble, or you end up ultimately having to resign. When I resigned with the intent of coming back, right, and finishing. So that was clear from the start. So for me, I think most candidates answer that question really well of what your intentions are going forward and participating long term. It's important that we have consistency, that we have obviously diversity of thought and experience, but we have people that know how it works, because it's not as simple as just sitting here and saying yes or no. So those are my three with a couple more thoughts added on. Where do we go from here, I guess, is up to you. Well, what's the next protocol?
Well, we continue to discuss until we sort of have narrowed it down to a consensus feeling amongst us that we would have 3 people supporting one individual. And then we would have a motion to support that person. So that's where we're at right now. From what I heard pretty much a lot of similarities. And the overlap was really amongst the initial 4. Some people had 3 of those, different 3, right? So I think our consideration, unless I missed somebody, is still amongst, at this point, Mr. Darling, Allison Barclay, Stephanie Good, Skylar Temple. Did I miss somebody? Okay, and then I guess for me, if I'm gonna, if I'm thinking about those 4 individuals, and then I think what the comments that you made, Mr. Schoonwitz, are really important, that having someone who, and I want to reiterate too what you said about the annual education conference is a time when the board does, we all go to annual education conference and we spend 2 or 3 days learning, essentially. Hoping that if you are selected that you can join us in that experience, which is coming up very soon. It's at the beginning of December 1, 2, 3, something like that. Okay, so it's coming up very soon. So I guess when I think about the individuals here, and I start to think about who can come up to speed fastest, Mr. Darling stands out. I think Stephanie, perhaps because of her experience and knowledge of schools and boards, and Skylar because of more general, I don't want to call it political, but understanding and experience in that realm. Allison, not to downplay what you do, which I think is extraordinarily important, but I'm not sure that the hit the ground running knowledge is as strong there. That's my personal opinion. I'm not sure how anyone else feels. Just attempting to narrow things down here. In a very difficult way.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable and not easy. Would agree with you on this standpoint. I think this is a good time of year because we are going into CSBA, so I think that it's like any other board member who comes on is definitely going to be a learning curve even for anyone who comes back. The one thing that Mr. Skin once mentioned was that I believe the only candidate is Allison Barclay that has students in our district and is that accurate? Did I have that written down correctly? So she's a parent who's come from middle school, I'm not sure elementary and middle and high school. So I think that brings a good perspective. I agree with you. I think probably any one of these four would be able to, maybe not as swiftly as where we're at, but I think they all have the pathway and I think they all have the intelligence to catch up pretty darn quick.
And one thing I think that's a really important role for to understand as a board member is that you are an advocate for public education. Okay, and so again, there's my pause. Stephanie, although like I said, you bring something for the choices that we're trying to offer to students and post-pandemic education. Your knowledge is extraordinary. But we are advocates for public education and for what we do in this district. I think that both Skylar and Mr. Darling are graduates of our school system, even though they may not have children currently that are school age or that are attending our schools. They have that experience, and I think Mr. Darling has very young children at this point. So I just wanted to point that out, that may not be a disqualifier, at least in my mind, although having children or grandchildren, certainly in the school district, gives you that connection for sure.
I think I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think Skylar's recent experience as a student in this district perhaps gives him a little bit of a heads up on the pulse of what's going on. The fact that he is not encumbered by other commitments, I think perhaps make him more suitable to being part of the board. Not to denigrate any of the other candidates, I think they're all very, very qualified. But I think at this point I'm leaning towards Skylar on the fact that he was well prepared, that he actually had the governance handbook and had looked at it. I think that's something that should be considered in terms of who we select.
I'm going to take a little bit of issue with you on somebody having availability and having the time to do the job, because one of the things that I always like to speak to as far as the strength of our board is having that diversity in the types of people who are engaged. Okay, so whether we have people from a variety of work experiences, some of us are from education, some are not, we bring different perspectives. And I think that that's important, and it doesn't just have to be someone who has the, you know, the time. We have people, you know, for instance, Dr. Pulsifer, he was a physician, and so his time was very limited, but he brought a unique perspective as well. So I just wanted to share that I think that that's not necessarily 100% valid, and at least in my opinion.
I'll give my 2 cents. I think this discussion is helping, maybe not, but I think it is. For me, I think the things that stand out is experience, and I would say your experience and also my experience, right? So for me, I'm down to Mr. Darling and Mrs. Barclay because of the experience that Allison kind of represented in her life and work and relationships. And then for me, with Mr. Darling, it's my experience. I've been in rooms kind of, when I started this, I was asked, well, why would we vote for you? One of the things that I spoke about was, well, I think I'm pretty good at critical thinking, right? And I got to see that with Mr. Darling, and I know he thinks through topics because I was in meetings with him, and I think he's pretty balanced in his approach. So for me, I'm down to Lee and Allison.
So I think we probably could keep doing this all night. So are you game for this?
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting ready, sorry, don't worry. But we probably shouldn't be narrowing it down to our top 2, is what I would think. So you did, for you, thank you. It's hard for me on both. I'm impressed, probably it's hard, you know, I keep looking at all of these applications, and they're all full of good stuff. So this is super difficult at this point. It's hard for me to narrow down from 3. I probably would go with Allison and Stephanie. And you bring up excellent points about Mr. Darling, and you're right, he is an excellent critical thinker. So I will probably follow Adam with those 2. But I think I would probably, if I had to choose one of them, go with Allison over Mr. Darling.
So you're at 2. You're at 2. All right, and so I'm good with those final 2 as well, as far as Allison and Mr. Darling, and we'll get to Mr. Schwartz in just a moment. What I'd really like to do is encourage anyone who was here today to enter the race next year. I mean, it's as early as July that you put in to run for the position. It's really not very far away at all, because this is a really challenging thing for us. There's so many good qualities out here, and it's so difficult to choose. So I think one thing that's maybe making me lean one way or the other is that I think Mr. Darling brings to the floor, and I just recall whenever we had decisions to make or comments said, that Mr. Darling always brought a very thoughtful perspective. He was very analytical and was an individual who really thought through all the information that was provided from all of the sources, whether it was information that was provided to us, input from different stakeholders. He could analyze all that and make solid decisions. I think that's really important in the fact that he can come in pretty much up to speed with board protocols, and help, if we're talking about the governance handbook, he was part of creating that. We didn't even have a governance handbook when Mr. Darling and I first joined the board. So that was a creation that board worked on and developed. So I would agree with the final two, and I'm going to say that I'm probably leaning towards, at this point, I think that bringing someone in who is up to speed and could I think that would be a good decision. So, kind of along, Mr. Schwartz.
My final two would be Allison and Skylar. And if going with what everyone else has said, I would go along with whatever the majority at this point decides. If you're asked for my number one, I would go with Allison.
We're kind of split at this moment because we have 2 and 2, right? And we'll need we'll need, yeah, that's why we need board members, so we can have a 3 to 2 vote.
Sandy, do you think it'd be easier to there on this town and to each of us are? Because I think we're waiting on that for that. 3 of us have done that.
We might not have consensus.
Right.
We could try.
Breather for 5 minutes?
So let's take a 5-minute break.
Let's take a 5-minute break. We're gonna give you a 5-minute break for your brain. Yes. You have to. We've all chosen our number one, so we need that from you. Do you want a 5-minute break just to?
I'm gonna go, well, I think we're split. It would be my number one.
Okay.
We're split 2-2.
So I don't know what we do now.
Someone needs to be respectful.
Mr. Darling, up to.
I agree with Adam on the 2. The reason why I put Allison over Lee was simply she's committed to running in the future. It's not a short-term period for her. And her engagement in the community is impressive to me, and it's a long-standing engagement. It's not a short time, it's not. She's there, you see her vast experience, so she may not know a lot about the Brown Act quite yet, but neither did I. And I feel like I got up to speed pretty quickly, and I had nowhere near the experience that she's had in school districts beforehand. So that's where I'm at, and I think both are exceptional people. I've been on this board with Lee. I think he's an amazing person, great dad, brings good perspective, was great during tiebreakers, he brought good critical thinking. I believe all of those things, but to me, when I read the applications and I sit here and I look at what I've written down, I really believe that we are a community built on community, and having someone who is putting her time into community in other cities, why her children are here in Temecula and wanting to bring that and taking this opportunity, it was impressive to me.
I'm gonna stand with my number one choice as I look back over my notes and answers to the question. I just feel like there were stronger answers from Mr. Darling and knowledge of specific items and issues, so I'm gonna stand there.
I think your point is kind of what my biggest concern was when this started, right? My biggest concern was not using this as a placeholder, right? Which was kind of what happened last time, because it was really clear that I wanted to come back, whether that worked out or not. And yeah, I agree with you. So I would say my number one would then be Mrs. Barclay. So that puts us at 3. Does someone want to make a motion?
Move to take a vote? Or you want to read it? I make an amendment to appoint. Oh, I'm sorry. I move to appoint candidate Allison Barclay to a provisional appointment to trustee area 1 of the Temecula Valley Unified School District Board of Trustees. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Motion is carried 3-1. Congratulations.
Okay, we're moving on to item H, swearing in of a newly appointed board member. Dr. McClay will do this now.
You would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Allison Barclay,
I, Allison Barclay,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
That's it.
Great,
Congratulations.
thank you so much.
We're hoping we can get to the board.
The meeting is adjourned at 5:44 p.m.